Welcome to Latest TV, and today I'm joined by Geoffrey Bowden, the chair of Healthwatch Brighton Hove, the body that observes health and social care delivery in an independent way.
And from the perspective of the patient and service user.
Right, so you are properly independent.
We are properly independent, set up by statute, so we have legal powers, something called enter and view. I always think of Bodie and Doyle kicking indoors. We're much gentler than that, but we can just arrive on the scene of an A&E department, a waiting room in a GP surgery. We can observe, we can report. This afternoon, before I entered the studio, I was contacted directly by someone who had a particularly bad experience, told about an appointment which she should have known about. The letter was dated the 7th of August, arrived today. Right. And of course she's missed it because inappropriate. And that particular case is typical of some patients. They don't feel, and it's an older patient, they don't like to complain directly because they feel they're going to get fobbed off, but they know they can come to an outfit like Healthwatch and get some action and get some answers.
Because you have helplines, don't you?
We have helplines, and we act as a signpost. During COVID, we got very high ratings because we were a trusted source of information.
And you'd help a colossal number of people each year, don't you?
Well, in the 12 years, we've directly helped over 35,000 residents of Brighton and Hove and Portslade.
And is it always a negative, the bad, the ugly, or do you get good feedback as well?
Inevitably, when people come into contact, especially with NHS, once they're inside the system, you get nothing but praise. But people have bad experiences. Sometimes the A&E department has been a bit like a war zone and has not been a very good advertisement for the NHS. And it's certainly not great for people working inside the system who are under tremendous pressure.
And are most of your complaints regarding A&E, or is it many?
It's across the piece, really. So
A&E
is very front of house and is very noticeable, and the trust is going through a transition right now. So they're having to treat patients while expanding the A&E footprint, so that in a year, 18 months' time, we will have a fit-for-purpose A&E department. So in the meantime, they're having to provide care and services in a building site, a partial building site. Sure. But they're doing magnificently, nevertheless.
We'll come back to A&E and care in GP practices. But first, I want to discuss with you the relatively recent news that the government is aiming to abolish Healthwatch, the 152 organisations across the UK that are delivering your independent service of listening to service users.
Well, it was a bit of a surprise, and I've described it as a new low in human resources practice because full and part-time employees of Healthwatch across the country, it's England we're talking about, received their redundancy notice via a Daily Mail article published on a Saturday, which is great practice to encourage people to keep calm and carry on.
Is there a consultation process?
They haven't had a consultation process. There has been the DASH report where Healthwatch England was consulted and ignored. And I hear on the grapevine in the original DASH report, there was a chapter about keeping Healthwatch, which caused some delay because there was backwards and forwards between the department and the author.
So
and in the end, it was better for a headline for the Secretary of State to have of burning the quangos.
So is there hope on the horizon, or do you feel that it will just change?
Firstly, you have the impact of an announcement that you're going to lose your job. So there are people employed in Brighton and Hove and elsewhere on various contracts. In Brighton and Hove, for instance, we were only just reappointed and recommissioned by the council for a new 3-year term with a 2-year option to extend. Literally a few months ago, albeit we were recommissioned on a reduced budget, and that has happened year on year for the past 13 years. We're asked to do more as our core work for less, and subsequently we have to find additional income streams in order to be able to deliver and keep top flight staff. And of course, it's volunteer led. I'm a volunteer of Healthwatch, and there are over 50 volunteers, many with lifetime experience in health and social care. They know what they're looking at.
So they would lose all of that experience.
They would lose all of that experience, and the proposal is that the independent side of it would be booted into the long grass, and ICBs, integrated care boards, would scrutinise and deliver the patient voice on behalf of the NHS.
Is that part of their remit anyway?
Well, you would think so, but how independent is that? It's and then local authorities would be asked to scrutinise and reflect social care users' experience of using social care services. I've likened it, maybe I've been a bit unkind, and I know you think I'm very unkind sometimes, Janju, of the NHS and local government being asked to mark their own homework. But maybe that's the cynical old me coming out. But that is, in a sense, what is being suggested.
Is the crux all around how is change effected within the NHS? I mean, how much impact does Healthwatch have on effecting change?
Well, they have a lot of impact, and I posted something which tracked a lot of the things that have come around as a result of patient and service user pressure. Mid-staffs, people will remember mid-staff, which was a tremendous failure. It was going on in front of everyone's eyes, but no one had the wherewithal to, hold the mirror up and say, this is what's going on, until it was too late. A Healthwatch operation is independent and can highlight, be the critical friend, and publicise what they find. And sometimes those reports and findings can be uncomfortable for the people working within trusts and at the Department of Health. So, maybe we're being too critical friend. Right. But at times we work with the NHS, and we've been called in by our local trusts here on many occasions to have a look with an independent third eye to see where they think improvements, or where we think improvements could be made in what they're doing. So we're seen as a help, not just someone who's ever moaning and firing tasers at health workers.
Well, briefly, give us a run through of some of the good work that's come out of Healthwatch reports. Well,
if it wasn't for the combined forces of Healthwatch around the country, the failures in dentistry, I mean, you try and get a dental appointment with an NHS dentist. Until we started highlighting these issues, the former MP for Pavilion made herself very unpopular by asking questions in Parliament about this, and then everyone recognised that this was a similar tale. We've got a local trust, a local GP practice in the city that decided arbitrarily to reduce its hours without consulting or thinking what the impact might be on its patients. The fact that patients, to get an appointment at this particular practice, would have to make at least 2 or 3 bus journeys, and these are in the main elderly patients, was completely ignored. And it was only when we were asked by some of the patients to look at this, we got together with patient groups, we conducted a survey, and we presented this to the practice. And lo and behold, they got in extra staff, they opened longer hours, and the decision was reversed. So that's a kind of typical win, if you like, of what has been achieved by Healthwatch. You will recall there was a disastrous commissioning of non-urgent patient care, which resulted in a contract being let across Sussex to what probably amounted to no more sophisticated than a radio cabs company. Because all the commissioners were looking at was the bottom line.
Right.
They weren't considering the plight of the renal patients needing dialysis treatment in a timely fashion, or once they've had their dialysis treatment, to be picked up and taken home. Shall we leave it there for the moment? I recognise the sign.
Let's stick with this, Geoffrey, because obviously there's so much to uncover here about the good work of Healthwatch, and why should the government abolish something that doesn't cost too much. It's staffed by volunteers in the main, and provides so much in terms of being, like you say, a critical friend. If you have a local news story you would like to share with our viewers, please email us at news@thelatest.co.uk. Thank you for watching. Welcome back to Latest TV, and I'm joined by Geoffrey Bowden, the chair of Healthwatch Brighton Hove, the independent body that observes practice in NHS and social care and really listens to the public about what's going wrong.
Well, that's what we were established by the Care and Social Care Act in 2012, and that's what we're delivering. And
you've been fighting, you have a petition out to fight the government's plans to abolish the role of Healthwatch.
We've had an open letter which has not been responded to by the Secretary of State yet, which points out maybe he may like to rethink this idea. And also we've got some work going on in the background. 130 of the 150 health watches, local health watches, have come together to look at different strands of what can be delivered to offer an alternative model.
Okay. Now, you produce quite a range of reports, don't you?
Across a
wide range of issues: mental health, men's health, GP services,
maternity services,
hospital stays, and also very specific things like earwax removal and vaping among young people. So it's vast what you look at. But what are the outcomes of those reports?
Well, we deliver the reports, and people say, "Oh yes, another report to gather dust on a shelf." But we have a program of going back to see how many of the recommendations have been implemented, and if they haven't, why? And sometimes there can be very good reasons why, but they've been taken on board in other ways. So we don't just deliver a report, forget about it, and go on to the next thing.
So do you think you're a body that really asks the questions that a lot of people in the NHS are too busy to ask?
Well, go back to that story I told you about, the call I received this afternoon. That lady is in her 80s, and she's of a generation where she doesn't want to complain. And that's typical of that generation. They keep calm and carry on and don't want to make a fuss. But the model that the Secretary of State is envisaging is actually going more digital and expecting people like that who you try having a conversation with a bot and you will be tearing your hair out because or if you're digitally excluded, getting advice from the NHS app or whatever it is that they guide you to. I don't know whether we've got time to talk about how to get a GP appointment. We referred to a surgery closing its hours or reducing its hours. You trying to get an appointment, you can have your finger hovered over the button at exactly the second before lines are meant to open.
And it has got worse since the pandemic, hasn't it? Because many people, I think anecdotally, tell us that they can't get a face-to-face GP appointment now. It takes such a lot. They have to first get through a computer, then perhaps have a telephone appointment, and then by that time, many people give up and go to A&E or the urgent treatment centre, which is perhaps misusing the A&E service.
It is, and the A&E department is often packed with people who should have been helped at their GP surgery. Those people, and there are a few of them still, who have the resources, will even go to the private sector. And that some cynics will say, well, that's the purpose of the making it difficult.
But for older people who are waiting and may not be as computer savvy, it is difficult, isn't it?
It is, and the majority of our healthcare comes in our later years. So when you are less likely to be computer savvy, less likely to complain, and maybe those who are sitting up in Whitehall are relying on that body of patients to stay quiet. But they know that they can pick up a phone to Healthwatch, and it can be a phone conversation, and get a response. And we're there actually to champion the patient and service user's voice.
So these plans to change Healthwatch, when are they likely to take effect, if they do?
I'm glad you asked me that, Angie, because I asked the same question at a meeting at the council, because we've got local government reorganisation, which is going to impact on these kind of services, external independent services as well. It is dependent on the legislative programme. So an Act of Parliament is going to be required. No one knows when that Act of Parliament is going to come in. The best guess is about 18 months' time. No one knows. There's no clarity right as we record this interview on how long the existing funding will last, whether it runs out at the end of March, in which case, until we get clarity, we may be forced to issue redundancy notices to existing staff. And in that scenario, people can be forgiven for deciding to look elsewhere for a job, because they'll have their own bills, their own mortgages, their own rents, their own food to buy.
How many people are employed at Brighton and Hove?
Well, we've got, I have to think about this because not all of them are full-time. We have about 4.5 full-time equivalents.
Okay, and many volunteers?
We have over 50 volunteers, myself included.
Right.
So all those people could be out of a job by the end of the year, because they would have had to been given statutory redundancy notices if there's no surety on funding from the end of March in 2026 into the next financial year.
And if you're not there, who would people complain to?
They could go out onto the end of the pier and shout into the wind, because that's
who will listen?
Well, exactly. They could phone their GP surgery if they could
get through.
But it is Kafkaesque in the way this has been handled. We're hoping that there may be a rethink, because it doesn't cost, in the scheme of things, a lot of money. Our budget in Brighton and Hove is 168,000 quid to deliver a service that people trust and respect. And then you multiply that across the country, and in terms of how many GP appointments could be saved, or it's minuscule in comparison to the daily spend of the NHS and social care.
And how long has Healthwatch been going?
It's 13 years.
And during those 13 years, you've amassed a huge amount of data across the whole country, haven't you?
Yes,
on various topics.
We have, and then we combine it. We work collaboratively with other health watches in Sussex, and we get awards. We've had national awards for the work we've been doing across Sussex. So it's not as if our work is not valued and recognised. It's a tragedy, and let's hope maybe there's a change of heart.
Is that what you hope for then?
Well, I always have hope. I'm half full. I'm a half full person. But if we don't get a stay of execution, then we'll have to look at different models that will retain that independent voice, but you need independence with teeth, because unless an organisation has some teeth that can make the deliverers of social care and health services sit up and listen and do something about it, then you're not going to get any change at all.
No. And allied with the changes over the last few years around, I'd say, dismantling many public health services as well, it is a blow for the health of the nation.
I hate to say it, but I've been around so long working in and around the NHS, I've lost count of how many Secretary of States for Health I've encountered. And, you know, I was actually born, dare I say it, at the birth of the NHS. So I've seen all of them, and
Yes.
either experienced as a patient or professionally in latter years. And sometimes if you sit still, you can see something coming around which you recognise. It's been rebranded.
Yes.
It may be a strategic health authority or something else, but you think, that's familiar.
So lastly, do you think really these things should be aside of politics? There should be like 20, 30, 40-year plans.
Well, this is the problem. The NHS particularly is a political football, and everyone wants to claim credit for doing something. We've had some disastrous experiments at the expense of patients and social care. Social care is still a very neglected side of public health, and I pray that it will be dealt with effectively. But you know, the ICBs who are being asked to mark the homework on behalf of the NHS have been told by Wes Streeting to cut their expenditure by 50%. So the money side of things is quite critical. How will they scrutinise the delivery of health services with a reduced staff, no expertise on board? It's madness, really.
Well, on that question, Geoffrey, I think this could be an ongoing series, actually, could run and run.
Watch this space.
But best of luck with Healthwatch Brighton and Hove. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
If you have a local news story you would like to share with our viewers, please email us at news@thelatest.co.uk. Thank you for watching.